Welcome to a special Valentine's edition of the Stella Talk Show. I'm your host, Stella Ram, a mother, realtor, entrepreneur, and someone who truly believes that success isn't just about what we build in our career, but also what we nurture in our personal lives. Today, we are celebrating love, connection, and the foundation of truly healthy, wealthy relationships, just in time for Valentine's Day. Whether you're in a relationship, happily married, navigating challenges, or even single and preparing for that special someone, this conversation is just for you. Because let's be real, love isn't just about emotions. It's also communication, mindset, and even financial well-being. As Esther Perel says, the quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of your relationships. And today, we are diving deep into what makes a strong, lasting, and thriving partnership. To help us explore this, I'm joining with an incredible expert, Sukaina Nathoo, a highly experienced registered psychotherapist and a clinical director with over 15 years of experience. She has helped countless individuals, couples, and professionals navigate life's challenges, working with top healthcare organizations in the United Kingdom and also in Canada before founding Purposeful Change Psychotherapy, a practice dedicated to empowering clients through meaningful, lasting transformation. Sukaina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stella. It's nice to join you today.
Amazing. Thank you for taking the time to join with us. So let's start with this. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about love and relationships, and how can we shift our mindset for a healthier, more fulfilling connection?
Wow, we're really diving in. That's such a good question. It's such a big question. So, when we talk about misconceptions about love and relationships, of course, we do have some data about major themes that show up for people as they're seeking love and relationships. What I'll do today is I'll just talk a little bit anecdotally about some of the research. I'll reference some of the research, but I'll also talk a little anecdotally about my own experience working with couples over the years. And so when we talk about the themes that I'm seeing in the therapy room and the misconceptions that often come up with regards to love and relationships, I'm really reminded of Sue Johnson's words. Sue Johnson is this wonderful creator and founder of emotionally focused therapy. And I actually use emotionally focused couples therapy in my own therapy with my clients, because we know from the literature it's the gold standard. I can talk a little bit more about that in a few moments, but I'm reminded of Sue's words when she says famously, "Love is not a bargain, it's a bond." And so I would say the major misconceptions as we're pursuing love and relationships is that it's transactional. We think we can argue our way out of an argument. and sometimes people really believe truly, deeply, that things need to be fair, that we can negotiate love and connection, and that it will offer a resolution to our challenges in a relationship. Actually, the research does not support this. The research actually tells us that a transactional view of love and relationships actually results in disconnection. And so let me give you an example. Many of us, including your viewers, will have in a relationship experience feeling upset with their partner, feeling their partner's perhaps upset them in some way. And we might say, I'm really upset, or they might say, "What's wrong?" And you say, you did this to hurt me, you should apologize. And then your partner says, "I'm sorry." And yet you sit there going, "Why don't I feel better?" And I think that's a really great example of the fact that transactional approaches to love and relationships does not make you feel more connected.
That's true. It's that different stages in life that you go through different emotions and mindsets. And what you mentioned there is something that, I have witnessed myself as well, navigating with couples and families in real estate and still. So I definitely agree with what you're sharing there. And when it comes to the key ingredients of a healthy and thriving relationship, what do you think that is?
So as I mentioned, I use emotionally focused couples therapy. I use emotionally focused therapy in all aspects of therapy that I do with our clients, and so do the team. I'm a big attachment theorist. What that means is that we lean heavily on the attachment science that we have. We have decades, if not more, of research that tells us how we function as social bonding mammals. Humans are social bonding mammals, and so connection is just as important for our survival as food, water, light. And so the key ingredients of a healthy and thriving relationship from an attachment lens is described as secure attachment, having secure attachment. And the key ingredients, the key variables that we look at when we look at what makes up secure attachment is safety and security. And so there's a famous study by Mary Ainsworth, and some of the viewers may have heard this through articles or other podcasts, but there is a child in the room and a mother figure. And they have the mother figure leave, and they watch observationally the child's behavior. And so what we know is that disconnection or distance from your attachment figure, perhaps a parent or a parental figure, creates distress for us. And the more distress we have, the more disruptions we have to that secure attachment, the less securely attached we become. So the key ingredients to a healthy relationship, a relationship that can be nurtured and thrive, is safety in the connection and security in the connection. Safety and security are like, it's important to understand what they are. Because of course these words can be used in a number of different ways. So let me share for your viewers clinically what this means. When we look at safety, we're talking about what Bowlby, who's heavily influenced attachment science, we talk about a safe. We talk about a safe base, and so a safe base is I can go out into the world, and through age, we develop a mental model of ourselves and other people. So you might go out into the world and you might hear your brother's voice or your father's voice or your mother's voice or your grandmother's voice in moments that we need them. So as we age, we take those voices with us into the world. But of course, we develop those attachments at a young age. And so a safe base is saying, I've got this home base, I can go out into the world, I can take risks, I can be myself, I can do things, but then I have this safe connection that I always can come back to. And security is the consistency. It's predictable. I know that there's someone in the world I can call and I have a sense of what they might say, and I know that they'll be there for me. So there's safety, which is a safe base, and a secure connection.
Yeah, that is very important in a relationship. I completely agree. And when it comes to couples, you mentioned about attachment theory there. So when it comes to couples, connect and communicate, what does that have to influence with the attachment therapy?
So the way that we work with our couples in the therapy room is a little bit, well, I would say significantly different to other types of therapies. Other therapies traditionally focus a lot on communication. And it's not that attachment science or specifically emotionally focused therapy does not touch on communication. Of course, we're helping couples to recognize dysfunctional patterns of communication and to model healthy communication. But the focus is not on that top surface level of communication. What I said earlier was that we think we can argue our way out of an argument. It's very transactional, it's very cognitive. And what we know from the research and what we know in our relationships is you can say what I'm asking you to say to me. I can tell you to apologize for that thing you did that hurt my feelings. But somehow I just don't feel better. I don't feel closer to you. I still feel a disconnection. So when we talk to our couples about communication in emotionally focused therapy, we're asking them to, and we're actually teaching. So actually, let me tell you a little bit about this because this is a unique perspective of a therapist in couple therapy. I actually tell my couples, I'm neither one of your therapists. My client is actually the relationship. And so I actually act as a relationship consultant, or the analogy we use in EFT is a dance instructor. You both are perhaps dancing in a way where you're stepping on one another's toes, and I can help and model and adjust the dance so that you can be in synchronicity. Your emotional music is similar, and so you can sets you up to dance better. So communication comes in because we're not just sitting on the surface, which is what most couples do, of talking about the content of an argument. The content of an argument is, you did this, and then this happened. Yes, but this happened, and then this happened 5 years ago, and it's not that I'm bringing up for the first time. You've done this multiple times. I have reasons not to trust you. So we're sitting in the content of an argument, and an EFT therapist is trained to see through all of that. A lot of coaches or therapists might make the mistake, in my opinion, of staying in the content and trying to negotiate who did what and who's worse. And that never works. And so with
it just pulls the argument a little further.
Exactly. So communication in EFT or attachment comes in where we're helping the individual client. So there's two partners. The individual clients need to learn how to emotionally regulate. So be able to tolerate understanding what they're feeling and feeling it. Going inwardly into their intrapsychic experience, making meaning and making sense of what's happening for them. And then to be able to share that with their partner. What that does is we go from sharing a secondary emotion into going below the surface and sharing our vulnerability and our primary emotion.
That's amazing. Like, a lot of things that you were saying, I was thinking in my head, like, oh my God, that is so true. Like, in everyday life, when you're talking to your partner or your kids or your family, these are like, stages that we go through. And, definitely having that kind of knowledge and, reaching out for the experts to get the therapy when they need to, like, secure and transform that relationship into a different level. That is very valuable information that you're sharing there. Appreciate that. You mentioned about common emotional patterns in what you were discussing before. So when it comes to common emotional patterns that create distance in relationships, how can couples break them?
Yeah. So I love teaching. So I want your audience to have a chance to be able to take this episode and actually kind of assess for themselves, like, which one does it feel like me and my partner are? And that might help them in seeking support. A majority of clients that call purposeful change psychotherapy say, me and my partner need to work on communication. And that already tells me a little bit about the pattern that might be happening in their relationship. Because here's what I say to most people. I'm not sure you aren't good at communication. I imagine if I speak to you just for a few minutes, you're actually really great at communication in other parts of your life, particularly work. At Purposeful Change Psychotherapy, we specialize in supporting professionals. And so I already know that they're coming through the door with at least an intermediate skill set in communication. And so it's usually not those things in a relationship. So when we talk about the patterns that show up, we talk from an attachment lens, we talk about pursue, withdraw, withdraw, and attack. And Sue Johnson, again, has just done such a beautiful job of helping individuals be able to make sense of this without the clinical language. So she's defined 3 major arguments that happened, and they're called find the bad guy, which probably doesn't need too much explanation. This is where it's like a tennis match. You did this, this. It's like find the bad guy, who's to blame. So that's one pattern that shows up. The second pattern Sue Johnson describes is called protest polka. This is where a partner is protesting. So again, coming with a complaint or a protest to the disconnection. And then the other partner will try to defend themselves and justify, but then they go into withdrawing. So it's pursue, withdraw. And then the third type is freeze, flee. This is where I have a few times in my career, a fair few times, had couples who come through the door and either say everything's fine and you can cut the tension with a knife, or they're just not talking. There's really no argument in the room and no protest, and it's because they're in survival mode. They've shut down to protect themselves, and it's too dangerous to show that they care. They don't know that their signal for vulnerability will be responded to.
Yeah, so the stress and the conflict, that stage is very vulnerable. I completely understand. I know it's sometimes, based on what the relationship has been in the beginning and to why it led to that situation, the storyline can be very interesting and maybe like empowering to revisit where they started, to understand, hey, like why that you're in that relationship too, right? Because the healthy relationships actually create a healthy lifestyle as well, right? So it's very important to understand, hey, like if something is coming up, you need to reach out and definitely talk about it with each other. But if that is not the stage that you're in, then reaching out to the experts, the professionals, to give you the guidance that you need. So when it comes to like life, we go through different stages in our relationships with different people, right? When it comes to a couple situation, communicating effectively about finances, career ambitions, and their lifelong term goals. Why is that important, Sukaina, and why that it should be, happen on a timely basis to be on the correct path?
So many good reasons to have that conversation, right? Firstly, I can imagine we'd want to be clear about the expectations in a relationship that we want to pursue, perhaps long term. In my opinion, as a therapist, and I'm prefacing this my opinion, there are countless individuals and couples I've spoken to over the years that say, I didn't know that my partner wasn't okay with this. I didn't know this was a deal breaker. We just can't get past this. We cannot negotiate through this. We are in two polar opposite positions on this issue. Now, I don't think that you can talk about everything when you meet someone. There are going to be some things that evolve naturally in life. An example might be fertility. You might meet someone and say, yep, we want to have children. That's important to both of us, but that might change organically. Your opportunity, your ability to create that in a particular way might change. And that might be much harder to navigate through for a couple. And they weren't able to sort of predict that beforehand. Of course, you're always going to have those scenarios that you can't plan for. But I think conversations around finance are so incredibly important. I think it's an important area, in my opinion, around compatibility as well. I think when you're going on a date or you're first learning about someone, you look for certain things like, do they have a sense of humor? Are they kind? Are they family oriented? Not that I'm saying these are everyone's values, but whatever you're looking for in a partner. And I think we shy away, maybe because of fear around perception, to talk about certain topics such as sex and finance and family planning. And so, again, I've spoken to countless couples over the years who didn't have those conversations, and they're finding out in the course of a committed relationship that they actually are on two very different pages, and neither one is willing to negotiate on their needs. So that becomes a little bit trickier. So absolutely, I think these are healthy conversations to be having early on. I do want to say, Stella, it's not an easy conversation to have. It's not that I'm expecting these conversations to feel comfortable, particularly if you didn't grow up in an environment as a child, whether that's your home or school or society, where those conversations were comfortable or modeled for you.
Yes, no, that's true. Like, when we enter different stages of relationship, we are not entering as a brand new person. We actually carry what we have traveled through our life with us. And we are the person we are today because of what we have gone through in our life. So that is very important to keep in mind as well when we are navigating relationships, keeping in mind the differences that you have with each other, and respecting where that is coming from, right? And especially, and also with in my experience as a realtor, when I'm working with families, I work with different stages in a relationship. So there are people who are first-time home buyers. They are buying their first nest, very excited, talking about how we are going to do the mortgage. Okay, this is me, this is him. And also then I'm working with people who are going to retirement now. They're downsizing. They want to think about, hey, how am I going to manage my funds and things like that. Or, people are now expanding. They want to upsize because they are having a big family. New babies are coming into the family. So these changes, navigating through these changes, finances, life changes, like retirement itself is a big change, or
transitions.
People, living separately and now coming together to create a family is a big stage. Or now being a couple, expanding into having kids is a big stage. So when navigating those life stages, what is a more effective way of communicating, planning? What have you seen in your experience?
I would say that what I've seen is that people don't talk, or they think they're talking, but they're not really sharing the underlying feelings. So I think, again, as I said earlier, people tend to share the content, and they don't share the feeling. And bonds and connections and emotions are non-verbal. People actually don't know this, Stella. Your emotions, your feelings are non-verbal. They don't come from your head. They're actually physical sensations in your body, which we then have to slow down to make conscious. We have to then make meaning of it, and then we can use language to express what we're feeling. So people don't slow down. People aren't having the conversations, the actual under the surface emotional conversations. So my number one takeaway for anyone always is have a check-in. Even if it's once a month, put it in your calendar, put it in your joint calendar, put it on the fridge. And okay, life happens and it gets busy. If you have to flex and change that date and time, do it. Change the date and time. Don't just say, oh, we didn't do it. It's okay to move it, but move it and make sure it happens. The reason for that, Stella, is that the more effort we make, the more time, even if it's small moments of time that we make to come together, to collaborate, the better you're going to be able to work together and partner on these projects.
That's true. Yeah, because when you're a couple, it's not a single person's game, it's a team play. So you need to have a common ground on both ends to have a successful result, right? So I completely understand and agree with what you're saying. And it is, when I'm thinking about it in reality, it's so funny. We talk about things, but we don't talk about the feelings that involves in it. So when you mention having that deeper conversation about, hey, what does that really mean for me? And understanding if that's the same for the other person or what they are expecting out of it. It's very important, and being part of each other's, journey and goals and relationships in no matter where you are at your life stage is very important.
Yeah, when there are transitions, you were talking about transitions, things that change. The key area, because I work with families as well, the key area that I see this outside of a romantic relationship, and if we talk about a family unit for a moment, is where you now have children that have become teens. This usually is a time, if anyone is in my age bracket, they will remember some years ago being a teen, and we often talk about our teen years as being the ones where we perhaps had the most familial conflict with our parents. So when I work with families and there's a transition happening, such as having now teen children who are mini adults, right?
Yes.
The rules change, whether you want it or not. The dynamics will change. And if we don't check in, remember I was talking about romantic check-ins, well, even in a family or any relationship, if we don't check in and review our expectations contract, it's not going to work. The contract's outdated. You all know this, Stella, as a realtor. if any variable in a deal changes, you've got to review the contract. And I don't think we do this in our relationships.
Yeah, no, I think because that's the disconnect that we have in relationships, that we should try and piece it together, in other words, right? Because we don't think that deep. So when you mention, hey, like when kids grow into teenagers, my daughter, she's 9 years old. She's already acting like a teenager. So I'm thinking, oh my God, when she's an action teenager, what is going to be? So even as a mother, there are different stages that I have to modify my role being a mother, to be there, be present for my child. So same in any kind of relationship, even if it's with your parents or your spouse or your partner, whatever that relationship is, like depending on the stages of your life that you're traveling, if there are different roles that you have to take as an individual, no matter are you a female or a male, or which cultures that you're coming from, you need to adapt to that to make it a relationship that is sustainable and wealthy and healthy for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I want to also touch base on the deep conversation, like the financial conversations when it comes to a couple relationship. So like a lot of people, even when I'm talking to couples on a real estate standpoint, they ask me, so is it a good idea to like do it together? Like, is it good to merge our finances together, or is it good to keep it separate? What is your take on that?
I love this question because I have been asked this so many times throughout my life as people find out I'm a therapist. Even in my personal life, I'll have people say, do you think, money should be kept separate or together? In fact, I would say the assumption is that the expectation is that money needs to be joint, or there is something odd happening in a relationship. I'm going to keep it real for a second because I do pride myself on being a relatable therapist. I like to keep things real. Do you, is my advice. Do you, whatever works in your relationship, as long as you're talking about it and you and your partner are able to be on the same page or negotiate your individual needs or expectations in a relationship, and you're happy with your contract with one another, do you. I don't think that there's a one size fits all. And I think that approaching relationships on any angle, particularly a financial one, and saying that it needs to look a certain way is redundant and it's archaic. And we do not live in a time or a society or a lifestyle that fits the cookie cutter. So as long as you and your partner are happy and have talked things through and are on the same page, do you. There you go. It came from a therapist. Do what works for you.
What works best for you. That's true. I agree with you on that. It is very interesting because, some people say, hey, I'm going to keep it separate because, it's good for many given reasons. And then I have seen couples say, no, we always keep it together because we are a team. We are in it together. So as you mentioned, whatever works for you, because both works amazingly if you have the same mindset and work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have couples that jokingly talk about couples that have decided to keep their finances separate, but they collaborate on expenses in their life. So their income may come separately into their bank accounts, but they may have joint responsibilities in life. It's like one partner's covering the utility bills, one partner's covering child expenses. So I have seen in couples where they choose to keep their finances separate, they're still collaborating financially. And some of my couples jokingly, comfortably with one another, say, my money's my money and their money's my money. So I think in some couples, you can see the joint, the collaborative approach, and that you can see that they've got a comfortability around talking about it. And those are the couples I know that have taken the time to have these conversations with one another, because you can see a comfort around it.
That's true. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Because we're doing this in time for Valentine's Day, I want to talk about conflict management, because that's one thing. Because we are coming from we're two different people coming from two different backgrounds, two different lifelines, in other words. And now we are trying to merge together and build a relationship. Especially in Valentine's, you're gonna think about buying that special ring, taking that next step. How am I gonna do this? So it's always good to have a plan on hey, if this happens, how am I gonna manage this? What's my game here when it comes to conflict management, right? In your experience, based on what you have seen and coached, what are the best ways to resolve conflicts in a healthy and a constructive way in a relationship?
So I model, teach, and talk to my clients about having a bonding conversation.
Bonding conversation. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. A bonding conversation is made up of all the ingredients that lets you feel close to one another, connected to one another. Sometimes I use the analogy because I'm a visual learner, so I like to give analogies. So I often say to my clients, is the Wi-Fi signal strong? I think there's an assumption that we have that we must be getting along on everything in life, and it's only a good conversation if we can agree. I don't think that that's realistic. But if the Wi-Fi signal can be strong, even very good, I think that makes a difference as to how we feel in our relationship, even if we aren't able to agree. I think that we can partner on things that we agree on, and you can also learn to partner on things that we haven't quite resolved, we don't quite agree on. In fact, some of my clients who have come to couples therapy over the years have, in the course of couples therapy, come to realize they aren't wanting to pursue the relationship anymore in a romantic way. And it's a beautiful process, actually, Stella, to be able to support, because they came to couples therapy to partner in the relationship. And even when they can't agree on that, we're beautifully having bonding, connecting conversations and partnering as they transition out of that relationship. So when I say bonding, it's the Wi-Fi signal is high, the emotional connection is there. There's a vulnerability as we share, as I build trust with this person, that I can be vulnerable. I can show them my inner emotions. I can tell them the things that I'm worried about, I'm scared about, what happens inside of me. It might not be based on here and now, but it could be something from your past. But as I hear this, a part of me gets scared. And when I get scared, I start feeling all alone and I worry you won't be there. That's a bonding conversation. That's a very different conversation than we usually typically have with our partners. Now, of course, each partner, if your partner is being vulnerable and sharing with you, we have an acronym and it's called ARE. So the emotional music that plays for humans is a bid for connection. Your emotional music plays on the inside and it says, are you there? Are you there? Are you there for me? And so what we want in a secure attachment, we want to all practice and learn and get better at, is being ARE. It stands for being accessible to your partner when they turn to you, responsive when they share their vulnerability, and engaged. And if we can each learn to be more ARE, that already fosters the trust and vulnerability to have a bonding conversation.
That's amazing. Wow, that's I never looked at it like that, but definitely communication is a big part for a healthy, wealthy relationship. Even if it's the smallest thing, if it bothers you, having that open communication, open dialogue about how you felt in that moment and how would you like to feel next time to avoid those kind of circumstances in the relationship is very important.
As I'm hearing you talk, I'm mindful, my therapy hat switches on, and I'm mindful that, you and I don't know who's listening to this episode, and we don't know what their lives look like, and we don't know their history, and we don't know what their relationship looks like. So as a therapist, I feel the need to add a caveat. I am not suggesting you bid for connection, show your vulnerability, and take these risks in a relationship where it doesn't feel safe. And that's professional
safety comes first.
Yeah, whether that's physical safety or emotional safety. You might listen to this episode and part of me gets worried that somebody goes, right, I'm going to go do this with my partner, and your partner and you have never danced this way before, and your partner is therefore not aware of what's happening or set up to be ARE to you. And what happens is you put yourself out there and your partner can't respond, is you're likely to have more of an attachment injury in that relationship. That risk-taking injures the bond. And that's actually that's very important to know for your viewers, so that they can make the choice with their partners to work on this with a professional. Also, if your partner's not open to therapy, there's nothing suggesting you can't do individual therapy. There are lots of wonderful therapies, and EFT, or emotionally focused therapy, can actually help individuals show up differently in their relationship, and that can also improve it. It doesn't always have to be couples therapy if that's not an option.
No option for you. No, that's true. I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because, the goal of this conversation is not to tell you what you need to do. It's just showing you the path as to who you can reach out to if you are going through a situation like this, and getting the guidance that is personalized to you and your situation and your partner. Most definitely. Thank you for sharing that. It's very important, because the reason I was trying to talk about it before is I have seen in my friend circle there are a lot of different relationships that you witness, and most of the time, if it's bother one person and not the other person, we're not going to talk about it. We're like, okay, it's not going to happen next time. We just shove it and we move forward. Sometimes it builds up. So it's always good to have those communications on time, so we can actually pave the path clearly for both of us in the relationship for a clear future, because that's very important in my opinion. Because if you're not doing that, you're just putting things under the carpet. And it's just going to get piled and piled and piled. And as you mentioned, that bonding conversation, maybe it will not even give you that opportunity for the bonding conversation. So as Sukaina was mentioning, hey, wherever you are in your life, your journey with your partner, we are not telling you what you need to do. What we're telling you is to reach out to the professionals who can guide you in your relationship, in your stage, and give you the advice that you need or you deserve for a better future with your relationship.
Yeah, practicing it in a room that can feel safer is a great first step.
Most definitely. Yeah. Safety comes first, most definitely. I want to ask you, what are some of the small but impactful changes a couple can make today to improve their relationship, Sukaina?
I think I mentioned check-ins. That's my go-to. So I would say just start anywhere. Start with one check-in, whether it's before bed or on a walk or at lunch or whatever it might be. In fact, for families who have young children, I often hear the couple say that it's incredibly difficult to get any time together. And when we do, once the children are in bed, we're exhausted. And so for relationships where that is possible, go ahead and start having check-ins. Even try it out, do an experiment. See if it feels useful for your relationship. I often say to my clients, I'm not giving you homework. I don't believe in homework. But let's do experiments. Experiment this, because everyone's different. One client might find it helpful and another client may feel it's not helpful. So let's experiment. So experiment with check-ins. For families who have young children or aren't able to easily make time for those check-ins, I would say make it a family interactive conversation, whether that's at the dinner table or again on a walk or a road trip or a car ride. There's some creative questions to make it family friendly. Something that I often teach my families and my couples, we have slightly different analogies, but for families we say rainbows and thunderstorms. And some of my families have added visuals to this over the years, like butterflies. So the rainbow is something that felt good. We never really talk about what went like well, or something that like sucked in your week. We try to veer away from negative language, but something that felt good. Again, the emphasis on identifying your feelings and modeling this for your children, how to have those conversations in a bonding way, like over a meal or whatever it might be. So my rainbow is something that went well or something that felt good. And then my thunderstorm is something that didn't feel so good or something that was a challenge in my week. And this helps the adults and children learn about one another. You might hear your partner say what their thunderstorm was and say, oh wow, I didn't know that happened. Or your child might say what their thunderstorm is, and you might say, oh, I thought it would have been that test you had, and actually it was this interaction with a friend in the playground. So you get to really learn, and you get to give each other the time and attention, and each member feels seen and heard, and you're practicing and modeling how to share in a positive way. So for individuals who don't have children, or they do have time, romantic check-ins, like romantic relationship check-ins, what's working well in our relationship, what's something we want to focus more on next week or next month. And for families, Rainbows and Thunderstorms is a beautiful interactive game to play that models and teaches safe and secure connection.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that theory, like rainbows and thunderstorm, and even especially with kids too, right? Because when you are in a family situation, a father, mother, and kids, whatever the father, mother goes through, that's what the kids are going to witness and, envision for them in the future. So that has to be a very healthy and safe environment for them. Just coming up with that game of rainbow and thunder, that's really wonderful. Maybe I'm going to use that in my household going forward.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free. Like I said, my families have added imagery to it over the years. Somebody came up with the caterpillar that cocoons into a butterfly, and this represented something that turned out different than what you expected. So this is like a child saying, I didn't want to go to the birthday party. I thought I'd be all alone, and I felt scared, and I had so much fun that turned out different than what I expected. This is a great cognitive strategy for us to slow down and actually tell our brains to pay attention when the feeling is not a fact. It's an important signal, but it's not a fact, and things can turn out different than what we expect.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, I love that. I love that. Let's talk about what is the biggest lesson you've learned from counseling couples over the years?
Oh, that's such a lovely question. I think what I've learned is that our humanness is our strength. Our vulnerability is our strength. And when we have someone to stand by our side and teach us how to do this, how to understand our humanness, it's beautiful, and it results in connection and empowerment. But a lot of people perhaps didn't have someone to teach them how to do that. And I love being able to be part of that process of helping people change their attachment. The great thing about attachment is whatever style you grew up with or adapted to growing up, we know from research and in therapy that attachment can become more secure. One of the ways is through therapy. So what my couples and therapy has taught me over the years working with people is that our humanness is our strength.
Oh wow, that's magical. It's great, because end of the day we are all humans, and being just you with your partner and able to share the you inside you with them, that means everything. Most definitely. Oh wow, that's amazing. That blows my mind. Well, what's like for the audience today, everybody who's listening, watching this, what's one piece of advice every couple should hear about building a healthy, wealthy, and a happy future together?
I think we've talked about some wonderful key takeaways today for secure attachment, for bonding connection. Slow down. We go so fast. You know, I think, Stella, at the start of the podcast episode today, you shared that we're so busy, we're doing so many things. I think it would be an error on our part to normalize that that's how we're built to live. I think we're doing it. I think we're juggling 50 balls in the air. I think we're busy professionals, having relationships, having children, maybe, or maybe that's not on the cards, or you feel like that's not, you can't do it. Either you feel like you can do it all, or you feel like you can't do it all. Either way, I think you're in the same boat. We're choosing to live in a society where the expectation is you go 100 miles an hour. And I think it's an error to believe that is the way we're designed to function. We know we're not. We have research that tells us we're not.
Yes.
So slowing down, people think they're slowing down, they're really not. Like, take what you think slowing down is, and then like take it down another like 50 notches at least. Like slow pace, like slow it down. And the reason I emphasize slowing down is because when we go fast, we're talking from our logical mind.
Yes.
Which we're taught and nurtured in this society all the way from school, right, to professional adults. We're taught that's what you need. But it's not true. As humans, we're emotional beings, and emotions are really powerful signals. You can really misinterpret a signal if you don't slow down to receive it and make sense of it. So slow down these important conversations, make time. I often say to my clients, I don't have a magic wand to give you, but there is an important decision to make. You're either going to slow down, figure out how to slow down, and I can teach you that in therapy, and you're going to choose to nurture and take time for this relationship that you're telling me is really important to you, or you're going to come up with all the reasons you can't, and the relationship will continue the way that you're telling me it's going.
So, wow, what an incredible conversation. This is amazing insights that you are sharing. And I thank you so much for doing that with us on this time. We've explored the key ingredients to building a healthy, wealthy relationship: trust, communication, financial alignment, and most importantly, a shared vision for the future. Huge thank you to Sukaina for sharing such valuable insights.
Thank you,
at the end of the day, you're most welcome. At the end of the day, the relationships, whether romantic, business, family, or built on connection, exactly as to what you were mentioning before. And just like in real estate or business success, any kind of relationships comes from being intentional, making smart decisions, and informed choices. And that's exactly what you break down for us today. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to share it with someone who might need to hear this on their end. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode at the Stella Talk Show. Until next time, Sukaina, thank you so much for your time. Remember, build strong foundations, invest in what matters the most, and create a life filled with love, success, and purpose. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with us on the Stella Talk Show. We hope you found value in today's episode and gained insights to help elevate your lifestyle. If you enjoyed the discussion, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who could benefit. It means the world to us. Until our next episode, stay inspired, and I'll see you soon on our next Stella Talk Show.